You know what I could use? A draw knife. Wait a minute, I'm a blacksmith. I'll just make one. See what we got in the old file bucket. That'll do. Good idea when you're working with old files and stuff, because I don't know what kind this is. I've never used it before. I've gone ahead and snapped the end of the tang off to make sure the grain structure is uniform. If it's case hardened, you'll actually see differences in the grain on the outside and inside, but that looks pretty good, so we're good to go. So here's what we got. I've marked off 7 inches for the blade, and I've made a couple little notches with an angle grinder just so I can see it once it's hot. We'll draw this and this out into some handles and bevel this. It should be a pretty straightforward project. So let's get started. Pretty straightforward, like I said, just find the mark you made with the angle grinder. Do a set down to isolate the material. And then start drawing that out into your handle. So, nothing fancy. Just keep working that set down and drawing the material out. So, pretty much every draw knife I've ever seen has only been beveled on one side and the other's been flat. So I'm just going to stay on one side. Normally when you bevel, you'd switch sides to keep it centered, but that's not what we're going to do here. So, I'm pretty much done with the forging on this thing. Some draw knives are curved, some are flat. I wanted a curved one, so I just didn't fight the curve as I drew the bevels down. And I'm just going to normalize this thing 3 times and take it to the grinder. So, here we are out of the forge. Next thing we got to do is just grind this backside completely flat, striking a bevel on the front end, and then after heat treat, we'll convex it over, get a good convex edge. I'll also round up the reins or handles a little bit while I'm here, just to make them a little bit easier to fit up. I'm actually not going to bend them until after the heat treat, just to make quenching this thing a little bit easier. But let's get it done. Quench this thing, doing an edge quench just because it's the easiest. And I'm going to draw temper just like I usually do when I edge quench, so I'm going to clean the scale off, watch the colors run until I get a light straw. That looks good. So, I don't know if you can see on camera or not, but we got a nice straw on the cutting edge, so it should hold the cutting edge, you know, reasonably well. That's another reason I didn't bend the reins yet, was so I could do an edge quench like this. It just seemed like the best idea. So, we'll finish grinding this thing and keep going. So, to make the handles for the draw knife, I'm using a couple of broken pieces of sledgehammer handle. What I've gone ahead and done is drilled a 3/8 inch pilot hole. It's just big enough to fit on the end of the tangs. So, now I'm just going to heat this up and burn it in the rest of the way. My little torch ran out of gas, so I'm using the cutting torch for this. Here's what we got after burning in the handles. I've got the handles marked off where I want to cut them. I'll cut them to length, shape them out on the grinder, and we'll be ready to epoxy them on. So, here's where we are in the draw knife build. I've got the handles roughly shaped. They feel good in my hands. So I'm just going to go ahead and sand them smooth and then go ahead and char them before I epoxy them onto the knife itself. I went and got another tank for my small torch. It's just easier this way. Handles are glued up. I don't really have a good way to clamp them on there, but I mean, it'll be okay with how tight it fits realistically. I'll let that epoxy set up. I'll drill a hole, put a pin in each one, and this baby's pretty much done. So, here we go. One draw knife made entirely from recycled materials, except the pins. Those were new, but the handles are broken sledgehammer handles. The blade was an old file. The forging was actually the easiest part. The most difficult thing was getting everything in line and the handles fitted up. It's also worth mentioning that it's not flat across the bottom. Every draw knife I've ever seen is slightly curved in towards the cutting edge. I guess it helps it scoop up the wood a little bit better. But anyway, just as a proof of concept, here's the same piece of ash I was messing with earlier. I also don't really know how to use a draw knife, but it seems to be working okay. There's a bit of a dull spot in the middle that I'll need to fix. But all in all, I'd say it's working pretty well. And here we go. One draw knife made from an old file and a broken sledgehammer handle. Obviously not my most beautiful work, but I made this for myself and to be a working tool, so I didn't stress fit and finish too much. But should make roughing out hammer handle blanks or hatchet handle blanks a little bit faster than doing it with a hatchet. Save me a little bit of time on the grinder as well. There you go. Nice, fun, relatively easy project if you want to give it a shot. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Always going to be more cool stuff coming. Thanks again.